I'm Jotham on a mission to increase America's happiness per square foot. That's your happiness in your house or your future home. With me is Andy Hartman of Hartman Law. Thanks for coming, Andy.
Thank you. Love the concept, by the way.
All
That's
right.
cool.
Well, let's make something good out of it. I'm writing a book called The Emotions of Home Buying.
Nice.
I'm researching it as we go. You have had 25 years of being of closing.
You know, I've been
an
saying
attorney?
25 years so long now, it's actually been 27.
Okay.
When I stopped to think about it. But yes, it's
Is
been a
that
great ride. Been a great ride.
25,000 home?
Oh.
How many?
You know, I would have to estimate, I'm probably between 50 and 60,000 at this point, overseen by the firm. So,
Well, that's the kind of research I need. So you have seen a
Right.
lot of people
yes.
make a decision, a giant decision, and you're pretty much at the the back end of the decision, right? But now it's the final, the final real
Yes.
thing. So, well, I want to hit you with the first question before we go into a little more of that. But if there was a formula for happiness, what is one thing that would have to be in it?
I would think getting out of your head, getting out of your own preconceived notions about what happiness is, and focus more on the things that make you feel happy, and then integrate that into different situations. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, if happiness for you is being with family, then I think you should incorporate your buying decisions and your living decisions around family.
Got it.
If you're an artist, you need to present yourself with space to be an artist, right?
Yeah.
In everything you do. That's my off-the-cuff answer to that anyway.
All right, it makes sense. Well, in those 50 plus thousand closings, how have you seen emotions affect people's decision making?
So for sure, anybody that has to this point purchased a home definitely knows about the emotions that build up almost in a crescendo. And I can tell within 10 seconds of somebody walking into my closing room how their journey has been.
Right.
And, I would think that as realtors and as closing attorneys, being able to recognize that is a number one skill you have to acquire. By the time they get to closing, some of them are super excited. It is the celebration at the end of a journey, and for other people, they are just happy to crawl and fall across the finish line. They're tired of everybody involved. They're tired of seeing houses and negotiating and arguing over little things associated with the home, and they're just happy to be done.
Yeah, that's a great list because I definitely think of the money showing up, right? From the mortgage side, that's why I'm with Affinity Home Lending is I know that it's going to close. I know it's clear to close a week in advance. The money's definitely showing up because the stress I see on people, just an unnecessary stress, a life debilitating stress of here we are, and now we're gonna wait for 4 hours for if the money's gonna show up or not. But that was a great list of other things that it's the accumulation of just all of these hard decisions at once.
You really have to know the people that you're working with and what they're going through. I mean, we have a situation this week where we need to exchange information with our buyers and sellers, obviously, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have this seller that's just not communicating, and everybody else was getting a little irritated. And come to find out that this seller has a daughter in Florida that's battling thyroid cancer, and the last thing they want to deal with is producing a homeowners association letter or right. So once we were armed with that information, we could adjust around that person's emotions accordingly and give them space, and that.
And it settled the buyers too. I mean, there's an answer. There's a reason that it's like this.
Yeah, you can say that of buyers. Some people are not moving because it's a joyous occasion. Right. Some people are moving because of death or financial circumstances changing. I mean, you have to know the person you're working with and meet them where their emotions are, really.
Just talking with realtor Lily Stevens that and we talked about on one piece just exactly that, the human element, walking alongside them, being face to face for sure. Technology has empowered people to research more, to do more on their own. There's a push, the bigger companies would love to take out, more of the humans. And I don't say it as a push to keep the humans in it. I want what's best for the consumer. But it seems like there's going to be something, lost in that.
Oh yeah. I mean, I can tell you, I see it all the time. You are a lender that stays engaged. You show up to your closings. You know, the realtors that treat their profession like a calling show up to their closings.
Right.
That human element needs to be there. I mean, yes, we could practically email and AI and text our way through all this, right?
Right.
But we've leaned in at Hartman Law. We've leaned into the space of providing a closing that's actually an experience for the people that want to show up to closing and they want to celebrate that event. We are all in for that.
Yeah.
Because that's just as powerful as being efficient with somebody's time is giving them that emotional experience.
And I'm sure you must have met some detractors along the way. I mean, you national headline, right? You bought the last of the Chaco's tacos. Was that the right thing a couple of years ago?
Yes, it was the most fabricated and completely made up national headline that I could come up with in the moment. But yes, we did. For those of you that remember the Chaco taco shortage, the rumor of the demise of the Chaco taco, we just went out and I sent a couple of my paralegals around to every mom and pop gas station that had an ice cream cooler, and we bought them up and threw them in our own ice cream cooler.
Right.
And got a good laugh out of that. It was something that was heartwarming, and it lightened the mood for closings for a period of time there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I remember it now. I mean, why do I remember
Right.
that? Right. And the reason I say detractors is what I mean by that is you have all sorts of goodies available, right? And you have a logo. Your Closey logo goes with that, and makes people smile. I see people take it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But some might say, well, that's getting away from the hard figures, and the attorneys should be, practically unhappy and just reading the numbers. And even as I'm launching this, I mean, this is about mortgages, but that's not what people want to talk about, right? And I have some concern that happiness per square foot is getting, too, I guess, woo-woo away from just, the hard, the loan quotes. But I mean, numbers are easy.
Right.
Emotions are hard. And I think we need to equip people. We can equip people to make better decisions. So have you ever kind of gotten a wary look or any detractor at all from doing something that was human inside something that is logical?
That's a great question and a great perspective. And I think you have to build the chops for yourself and the reputation that you can do your job highly efficiently and technically sound to make room for that emotional space. Let's face it, there's some very large companies that have figured that out, and we love their commercials, but at the heart of it, they're a tech company or a finance company. And the consumer is going to trust you and take it on faith in a lot of ways that you are going to do your job and protect their interest. If you can add that other element without making it kitschy or silly, then you've really won the day. I mean, we've at Hartman Law, we can turn on a dime and become very, very lawyerly if we have to. It's
right.
We have a proven track record of we've never lost anyone's money. We are kind of in the industry. We clean up titles. We clean up the records, the public records. So we can do all the boring buttoned up stuff too.
Right. Okay. The balance of both. I mean, you have to have the one.
Right.
We had a psychologist, Dr. Pipe, in here that said something really enlightening about the balance of, you want. I'm like, well, I don't want to make an emotional decision. I want to make a logical only. But all decisions are logic. I'm sorry. All decisions are emotional. And so, how do we do one or the other? And it was both. Was ultimately his answer. You got to recognize it. So in the same way, you got to be professional and be great at your craft, and then let's be human as well.
For sure. I mean, I certainly am not in the space of a realtor, for example, but the home. I'm a home buyer. I've purchased homes, and think about walking through that home. You may make your logical decisions. Can I turn my SUV around in this driveway? and then you may make your emotional decisions. This is going to be a great room for my child. He would really love, some aspect of this house. You are pre-imagining memories not yet made in these homes, and that is very much an emotional component. Memories are not born from logic, right? And I can tell you that when I sit at the closing table, you have many instances where the people are talking about they can't wait till the dog is in the backyard.
Yeah.
They can't wait until their child plays in this particular room. So 100% room for both.
I'm gonna have to rewatch your quote there, but pre-imagining memories that are not yet made. Love that. So we'll put that in the toolkit for homeowners to make the best decision for the home that they're going to get. Is what memories are you really imagining? Because I mean, I've heard people say things like, "I have to have a sink that looks out the window to the backyard because that's what my mother had." Somebody else says, "I don't want that because that's what my mother has." So that's a complex reality,
Right? For sure.
Any stories of people walking out or canceling at the last second, or any kind of explosions?
What amazes me about the human psyche is how someone can take a purchase, a $750,000 home purchase, and whether or not to go through it will come down to whether or not they get a $200 stain inlaid glass window, and that is exactly what happened.
A real example there.
A real example. Yeah. So, all facets of, we could debate this as on a realtor exam someday, but you had this beautiful large home, and all of the pictures in Zillow and FMLS and Realtor.com, all of the pictures in this master bathroom had an inlaid stained glass window covering. Okay. So those of us in the industry know that you will argue at that point whether that's a fixture or if it's a removable personal item, right? And that became the debate.
Yeah.
And that buyer wanted that so bad, and the seller had sentimental value attached to it. It belonged to his mother at one time. He was not parting with it. So the buyer walked and lost their earnest money, and we're fine with that.
Okay.
So I can't think.
So I guess that tells us that window isn't a permanent part of the house,
right.
If they lost their earnest money out of it.
It came down to the fact that it was hanging on hooks. It wasn't constructed within the window. So
wow,
that's a little.
But it's like, what's the the phrase? Cut your nose off to spite your face. Like, none of those numbers. $200 out of $750,000. Like, go buy one that's 10 times better.
The seller offered to drop the price of the home by like $500.
Yeah.
The buyer said, "Nope. If I'm not taking that, I don't want the house." And you wonder, how did that window speak to that buyer? You want to talk about emotions,
right?
I mean, something about that sold that house for that person, and you can't overthink that. It just didn't work for him in that case.
Is that the answer? Like when someone has painted themselves into this corner, right? You see people go in a process, and there's this giant universe that's going all around, but the most important thing of existence becomes something like that. They've painted themselves into that. Any advice on how to, what the escape hatch is to kind of get back to normalcy?
Well, when we're trying to sort of broker those disputes and arbitrate them on the fly, it's a fine line you walk, because you don't want to undervalue or discount someone's feelings about something and tell them, "Oh, you're being ridiculous. That's such a small thing. You're cutting off your nose to spite your face," because there could be some deeply entrenched reasons why that spoke to that person. So you do have to guide them through the sort of the decision-making process. And one of the things I like to do is I like to go to someone and say, "Look, there's two of us here in this room right now. To me, this is a transaction. So I'm going to be here to talk to you just about nuts and bolts.
Okay.
You have the emotional side, and I respect that. But I'm going to tell you the real side of, the money you might lose, the built-in appreciation that your realtor says this home already has." We've gone so far as, even if somebody's just laser focused on some playground set or something, we'll even get on the internet and say, "Look, I found it here. You could have it delivered to your house in 3 days.
Yeah.
Don't fight over it."
Gotcha.
And so we tell them, say, look, I'm going to be the cold, calculating, technical guy who's going to give you, I'll be like your dad in this situation, and I'll tell you what could happen.
Yep.
And you be the emotional person, and we'll listen to that too. And a lot of times we can get folks to kind of let themselves off the hook, so to speak.
Right.
You know, they've got to go through the process of, you know, there's a lot of ego involved too, right? People don't like to lose once they start.
I was thinking of that on
you
that
know.
that $200 one too. Is it's almost just to win. It's like you're gonna
Yeah.
let just to win over
Yeah.
another human. You're gonna decide where you're gonna live, and you'll never see them again.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And
but we do. We're emotional creatures, so they
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, and sometimes you have to, you know, the public, we take for granted what the public knows and does not know about the real estate buying process.
Yeah.
And, you know, to many buyers, if something is on a picture in what they perceive to be the sales and marketing of a home, they think that that is exactly what should be there on the day that they close on the house.
Right.
And of course, they don't seem to think that about couches and automobiles that are in the picture. But boy, if there's something that's in that gray area, and there are gray areas, but
Well, those gray areas are a lot of what I'd love to, find the answer for, or find a, like I said, a toolkit to help people, just not spite your face, right?
Right.
Let's something might not, that might have been wrong, and money is usually a good, arbitrator of how to do that. But if something means, if an item means an emotional value to two people, and only one can have it, you might be in an impasse.
I think the emotion, we can't take the emotional component out of it. One of my clients during the craziness of 2021 was this large national hedge fund.
Mm-hmm.
They were buying 100 homes a month in Georgia. And you want to talk about the absolute opposite of emotion. Talk to an investor who, if this home is, $1,000 outside of their box, they call it, they will cut bait and run.
Yeah.
They have no emotional attachment whatsoever. Is that good for them? Sure it is. But I think for home buyers, that emotion is what drives, it's what motivates people to buy and sell.
Yeah.
Because let's think about it. If everything was about whether or not it was a good financial decision, you may not move. You may not move out of a house that you have all this equity in.
Right.
To start over again. You might not do that if it's just all about logic, but life has other plans always.
Well, I mean that this phrase, be repeating, numbers are easy, emotions are hard, is really a self-reflection of things. I put maybe too much value on. I can work it all out in the numbers, and the answer's in there, and kind of tongue-in-cheek trying to develop a formula, because now I know, of course, it's not like that. Just a couple other questions for you on in 50,000 closings or more. You see, $110,000 houses, and you see, $2.5 million houses. And so I read once in a book that classes, all right, that the economic classes have kind of different styles of humor, different family structure, and maybe different decision-making, kind of strategies. Have you, a very, very broad question there, but have you seen any, difference in kind of the decision-making and the emotional impact of decisions on let's call it, $200,000 house, on a $500,000 house, and ultimately on a million plus type?
I would say I have seen differences.
Okay.
And they're interesting. And again, you're right. Can we generalize about every single person? No, but you have your first-time home buyers, which today is a $400,000 house, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in that box of first-time home buyers, it's mostly emotion for the most part. It is the nervousness and excitement and milestone life event that perhaps blinds them sometimes to. That's why it's always good to have your father-in-law there, or a really good inspector, or a great realtor that says, yep, I know you love that backyard, but this roof badly needs to be replaced. And the buyers don't want to hear it, right? You don't want to hear the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Then what I have, maybe what you call your new money or first time upper middle class folks that are buying that next level house. And many of us have been there. I was probably guilty of some of this too. And you're at that point where you're making a lot of money or good money and you're willing to spend it, but you're also, you're not going to lose a dime of it if you can help it. And it's that group of people that I find tend to be the most argumentative and maybe potentially hyper combative over little things. They don't want to
Gotcha.
lose. I now have the ability to buy something very good for my family, and I have to be a good steward of that. And, you know, whether it's the man or the woman, or you know, I've seen the stay-at-home parent be often a lot more aggressive with protecting the finances than the one that's actually making the money. So,
Right.
and then you have that next level, the folks that are out buying their lake house, or you know, they're buying a $3 or $4 million house. I have found more experiences where they don't trifle over little things, and actually, if they're not careful, they can get taken advantage of, quite frankly. So
Okay.
there seems to be more of a calm and maybe a peacefulness with the process at some level.
Right. That
That's
makes
my observation.
that
And
that
so,
makes a lot of sense.
yeah.
The last thing is just: is there for our toolkit or just advice to anybody is watching? Is what is something people can do or not do to increase the overall happiness in their home?
Increase the overall happiness in their home. I would say give yourself space to enjoy your emotions and to have them.
Yeah.
And that includes giving your spouse that space as well.
Yeah.
You know, that's a life lesson, right? But definitely in the buying process, I feel like you have to allow that emotional component there. You have to allow yourself to be angry or excited. You know, especially
Okay, not say I can't do this. Not to deny them, even the negative emotions.
I think you have to let people play it out. That's why when I'm dealing with someone that's angry, the first thing I want to do, I want to understand and give them a chance. I may already know what I want to say to this person, but you
Yep.
have got to let that person run the process of getting it out, right?
Right.
And I think
They'll
that's,
hate you if you say it before they
oh, right.
work through
Yeah.
it.
You know, it's somewhat insulting to say, hey, I've solved your problem before you even tell me what it is.
Yeah.
And I think, especially as men, you know, I hope this doesn't seem sexist, but I think as men, we deprive ourselves of the emotion of joy a lot of times, and we should allow ourselves to be excited about the home buying process with our families. You know,
Yeah.
you don't have to be the one that says, "Well, that garage is going to be too small," or "That room's not big enough for Junior."
Right.
Try to enjoy the process a little more.
All right. Well, leave yourself and those around you emotional space to feel those emotions and make good decisions on buying your home and on living every day together in them. Andy Hartman with Hartman Law, thank you so much for being here.
The honor, pleasure. Thank you very much.